Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Heading into the month of November, you got college football fan bases largely in two different groups. You have that college football fan base that you're sitting there spending your days at work crunching the numbers, taking a look at the pathway for your team to get to the college football playoffs. And I think the other set of fan bases, which is growing by the week, are sitting there kind of tugging at the leash for that transfer portal to open, talking about different players and scenarios and position groups that need to be addressed in the transfer portal. Many of y'all know I'm a Michigan fan, so you guys know what category that I fall in. You're starting to talk about what quarterbacks are going to be available. Want to get into I got 6 or 7 names that I want to talk about in terms of intriguing quarterbacks that we could see hit the transfer portal over the next couple of weeks. Fired up to get into this one. Now, before we do, and as always, I think most importantly, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. I got 7 names right now. I think that list could grow by the day. So would love to hear some gems from y'all in the comment section. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. It's about to get active over the next couple of weeks and months in the college football landscape. And without further ado, let's get into this one. Let's start with Arizona quarterback Noah Fafita. A name that I think a lot of people thought was going to hit the transfer portal 12 months ago, decided to stay with Arizona. Certainly didn't have the season many expected at Arizona. We know this kid can play. You go back to that 2023 film, won 10 games with an Arizona team that historically flat out stinks. You look at Noah Fafita and say, this kid was under recruited coming out of high school. There's not a lot of Power 4 programs that will touch a quarterback who's 5'10", under 200 pounds out of the high school ranks. But once they show they can do it at the Power 4 level, that kind of quarterback gets a lot more intriguing. Noah Fafita, one, throws off platform exceptionally well, an extremely accurate passer that, has struggled in 2024, which probably is a result of a couple of different things. One, a new coaching staff. Number two, let's just be quite frank. Arizona is not a very good football team outside of Noah Fafita and wide receiver T-Mac. And so I just don't think Noah Fafita had a ton of help around him in the 2024 year. I think this is a quarterback that you inject to a lot of different rosters, elevates a lot of different offenses. I think Noah Fafita will be, and I think there's a lot of reason to believe he's going to hit the transfer portal. I don't think that this new coaching staff he's necessarily gelled with the new coaching staff. So I think you see Noah Fafita hit the transfer portal. I think he's going to be, a pretty hot target. Let's go to Oklahoma quarterback Jackson Arnold. A really tricky evaluation. Obviously, former 5-star, top 10 national recruit, one of the best quarterbacks in that 2023 class. Got benched halfway through the season for Mike Hawkins. Now he's back starting for Oklahoma. Obviously hasn't looked great in 2024. I think the bigger storyline for him is when you have an offensive line that can't run the football, that can't pass protect in the SEC, it's hard for any quarterback to look really, really good. And I think that's kind of where Jackson Arnold falls. I think this kid certainly has all the physical traits in the toolkit to be a really good quarterback, to elevate a lot of different offenses. And I could see him hitting the transfer portal after this quarterback roulette that Brent Venables has kind of played with this Oklahoma offense. I think Jackson Arnold will be a guy that, again, not necessarily a proven commodity at the Power 4 level, but a guy that I think a lot of teams think can have a lot of success if you can give the pieces around him that allow him to have a better chance to be successful. Jackson Arnold, another really intriguing name. Want to go to, a quarterback that I personally really like. And Miller Moss, is he going to win a Heisman Trophy? No, probably not. And I think that's the conversation around USC. Whenever you're a quarterback under Lincoln Riley, the expectation is to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Miller Moss probably won't be a top 5 quarterback in the country in 2025. That being said, I think he elevates and is an upgrade for a lot of different Power 4 offenses at the quarterback position. I'm a Michigan fan. I think Miller Moss would be, a perfect fit at Michigan. He attacks the middle of the field extremely well. It has largely kept the ball out of harm's way, but the turnovers have been a problem over the last couple of weeks. But I think the biggest storyline is this USC offensive line was a disaster early in the 2024 year. I think Miller Moss wasn't necessarily helped, especially in the Big Ten. Kind of similar conversation we had with Jackson Arnold, where, I mean, look, you can be a good quarterback, but if you are in the SEC or the Big Ten and you don't have good pass protection, it's going to be tough sledding. And so I think Miller Moss is a really good quarterback that just didn't meet the expectations that a lot of people have for that USC program. I think there's a lot of teams that will be interested and Miller Moss over the next couple of weeks. And I think he certainly could hit the transfer portal because it sounds like he's not going to be the guy for USC in 2025. Another really intriguing name that I'll throw out here, Kyon Jones at Virginia Tech. Really, really talented kid coming out of high school, committed to Baylor, came over to Virginia Tech, been a little bit more inconsistent than I think what Virginia Tech fans would like. I think the expectations for Virginia Tech were quite high, and they didn't really meet those expectations in 2024. You're kind of betting on him because he's going to be a redshirt senior. There's a pretty big sample size of him being kind of a roller coaster of a quarterback. But if you think you can bring in Kyon Jones and get the best out of him in 2025, the sky's the limit for this kid. 6'2", 235 pounds, an exceptionally good athlete with a really, really big arm. The consistency has been a problem. I don't think there's going to be a lot of coaching staffs and a lot of offensive coordinators that look at Kyon Jones and say, I can fix him. I can design an offense that this kid can be really successful in, kind of a boom or bust kind of quarterback transfer, kind of like how we talked about with DJU last year, where, there's a pretty decent sample size of him not being an elite quarterback, but there is that upside that you really, really like with Kyon Jones. And quite frankly, he's been better than DJU when he's been on the football field at Virginia Tech. I think my take on these kind of prospects there's a lot of coaches that have a lot of confidence in themselves as coaches. And I think they look at a guy like Kyon Jones and say, hey, I know I'm a good quarterbacks coach, or I know I'm a good offensive coordinator. You give me this kid, I'm going to design a great offense around him. If he hits the transfer portal, I do think there will be a pretty strong market for Kyon Jones at the Power 4 level. Next quarterback in this Ohio State quarterback room is going to be really interesting, right? We don't really know what it's going to look like in 2025. They certainly have a logjam of really, really talented quarterbacks that haven't gotten the opportunity to show they're the guy. Devin Brown probably headlines that list, was On3's number one prospect in the country out of 2022. I'd be very surprised if Devin Brown is back with Ohio State in 2025. I think their plan is probably Julian Sayin to take over this offense in 2025. Devin Brown, again, it's a high ceiling guy. I mean, there's a reason he was a 5-star coming out of high school. There's a reason that a lot of Power 4 programs wanted this kid out of high school. Hasn't shown it at the college football level yet, but there's a lot of reason to believe that he can be a good college football quarterback. Devin Brown will be a guy that certainly has some buzz around him, but you look at Lincoln Kienholz, you look at true freshman Aaron Noland right now. Ohio State's got the number 2 quarterback in the class coming in 2025. That quarterback room is going to be really crowded. You can only play one quarterback. I would expect 2 or 3 quarterbacks to hit the transfer portal for Ohio State over the next couple of weeks. Devin Brown probably being what I think would be the most intriguing one of them out of the Ohio State quarterbacks that'll hit the portal. Another really intriguing name, Conor Wigman. Obviously, the sample size of him playing for Texas A&M, not great. You've seen some flashes. I mean, you go back to 2023, him against Miami, or take a look at the 2024 season against Missouri. There are specific games where you look at Conor Wigman and say that's a quarterback that can do a lot of damage. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster for Conor Wigman. Obviously got benched for quarterback Marcel Reed. Again, he's one of those quarterbacks that I think you could see a lot of offensive coordinators and head coaches saying, let me get my hands around Conor Wigman and let me see what I can do with him going into year 4 of his college football career. Last one, and kind of I would say a diamond in the rough, a guy that I don't think a lot of people are aware of besides the Oregon fans, Austin Novosad. There's a lot of realities where Austin Novosad starting for Oregon in 2025, but they brought in Dante Moore in the transfer portal. So I think Dante Moore is going to be the guy. They're trying to bring in 2 quarterbacks in the 2025 class. I think this is a classic example of a quarterback that can play, that I think can play at a high level. Every time I've seen him play in the spring game, he has been very impressive. I know a lot of Oregon fans want him to stick around, but I think at the end of the day, he's too good to go into year 3 of his college football career not really having the chance to start. And so this is a guy that was not necessarily a top 10 national recruit coming out of high school, was a guy that a lot of programs liked. I think a guy that certainly can play. Not a lot of people are aware of him, but I think if he hits the transfer portal, I think there'd be a pretty hot market for a kid like Austin Novosad as well. And I think that's the storyline, is there are some quarterbacks like Noah Fafita that are kind of proven commodities. They're pretty good quarterbacks. And then there's a lot of guys like Austin Novosad or Conor Wigman or Devin Brown, guys that, haven't necessarily played great in their college football career, but we all know they can play. I think this list is going to grow by the day. We'll continue to update it. I think a lot of good quarterbacks are going to be on the move this offseason. We'll continue to kind of break it down and kind of evaluate the landscape of the transfer portal over the next couple of weeks. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.